Yes, this is Forex, masterforex.blogspot.com, and this is starting off with the new year again. New year already coming through with information that involves risk on investments and current opportunities. Bitcoin's value versus gold at $485 an ounce, 95 cents, 97 cents actually. In the kilo form, 15,612 and 15 cents. And for the other metals, that's silver, platinum, palladium, rhodium, which is in return, rhodium is usually in comparison to the Japanese yen. Palladium is in comparison to Canadian loonie, and those two are used as light and heavy commodities. So the rhodium will be the heavy commodity from the yen. The palladium will be the light commodity from the oil of crude. Platinum becomes a euro, which is a form of an act of unifying the two commodities to not symbolize one commodity, but to be managed through a form of direction with the shipments. So when things are moved in place, they're platinum. So it's like saying it's platinumizing, or if it's staying in one place but it's still maintaining its solidness, it's a form of platinumizing. So that's how that works. Silver is what was used to plagiarize the platinumization, because Lord Jesus' platinumization of standfulness and steadfastness towards everything that can concern his children, but was uncentralized through silver. So those are how those fashions are weighed, and then it goes on from there. And then other than that, copper, that's usually high correlated with real estate, because most homes have copper wire, but the wire is something that transmit communication, which is the copper signal. So it's usually how the signal is transferred underground with being grounded at the same time. And then oil, again, goes back to crude oil through palladium. And then the Dow Jones is more like the financial structure of the nation, but it's defined through the platinumization, or how things play out but never stay the same. Because platinum will stay the same, but playing out doesn't stay the same. So there's more fluctuation in the market than there is in the ground, because the grounds fluctuate only when it reaches the sea, because it has to look to move, so it quakes. So it's looking for like a peak, like a mountain peak from result of a quake, and then that's how that works. And I was roll past that anyway. So these are all the currencies that I'm gonna put into play for the moment. So the next one, in an orderly fashion, will be the Great British Pound. And then it'll be the Euro. And you see, the only thing that's changing on there, of course, are the prices, the bid and the ask price for the kilos and percentage form to the right of it. Or it could be for the ounces. The percentage at the right, it still shows the same. So I'm going to just use the ounces for now, because that's the standard of what else everybody else looks at. So the Swiss still have the same amount of, measurements. There's nothing different about it. And then the United States dollar is next. As you can see, the price. Let me just scroll back and show you. So Bitcoin is 468 and 8 cents. And then the pound is $1,004.51. And the euro is $1,135.24. And the Swiss is $1,281.19. The United States dollar is $1,293.80. So it looked like they actually just have a few dollars less. So as you can see, these are the orders of how things are orchestrated. And then Canada, the Canadian loonie, the same thing as palladium. It's a form of a light oil. And then Australia, which is the heavy crude, which is the heavy one. So basically, it'll be like saying, that the Canadian oil comes down as light crude, but when we see it as rudeness. Just like, for example, how I'm trying to change the screen on here, and it keep on freezing up on my phone, like people messing with it, like they be trying to like monitor whatever I'm doing. We don't get it. But anyway, so I just scrolled on to the next one. There we go. So then that's in correlates to the heavy crude, which would be a form of erodium. But it's the one land that didn't erode. It just revolved around with the sun on the rhodium that comes from the ground. So they study rhodium over there, the heavy crude, which could be, or the heaviest crude, or the heaviest, what is the word I used earlier when I correlated Japan? The material, I guess, is a form of heavy material. So there's this heavy machinery, heavy machine operators. And then after the Australian dollar, it is, let's see, Brazil. Yep, and then after Brazil is China. So yeah, Brazil, that'll be the finances of the heavy materials. And then the Chinese government, they handle the land with the heavy machinery. So you ever look at videos in Japan, they be building some stuff with some big machines over there. In China, I mean. And then after China is Hong Kong. And that's the form of Eurozation with Euro. Unionizing it, honging and konging it. To hon in on it, or to home in on it with a homing device. And then that's how that works. So it's a form of a unionization because they call it a dollar, a Hong Kong dollar. So the ones that have the word dollar on it can unionize with those nations through heavy machinery. And then South Africa will be next. And the South African economy has the real estate. So the real estate would be a form of the same rights to build on the land with the future aspects of having more buildings on the land. And that shows the value over there on that currency. And then the next one in order would be the Mexican peso. And that one's how the communications are handled. So over in Africa, they will have the real estate through copper, mostly handling copper to make their money the fastest. Instead of digging for gold, they could do more sales with copper because a lot of the Hispanic environment uses a lot of copper. I mean, I've heard stories about, people saying, hey, we missed some copper wire from the bottom of the house. Somebody probably took it. somebody, just blame whoever. But that shows that copper still has value and it's correlated mostly in real estate. And then Russia will be next. And Russia will have the technology to track where the copper wire leads because they have the cold wire from the east. Or you can say they have like code words which come through. It shows right here, if I talk about me talking about right now, it shows through palladium, which is a form of a oil, a crude way, or a light crude. So basically it's something that would be light, crude, to see rude, or to say see rude, and then they see the rude and they take the copper from the person. So it's like saying if somebody's like doing something like any kind of a lifestyle that's being lived in another region that involves the activities they do on the daily, but they doing it in a nation that doesn't even have it fully processed through legislation, they see that as rude because they see it as an opportunity for them to get in the legislation and for that person to use the thing that they do every day that might not be making them happy. And then next thing you know, it gets tracked around. Everybody hears about it through the form of palladium, the light oil, and then it'll come back and say, okay, let's go ahead and rush. I'll go to the east, the far to the sunlight to show what was said. And that's usually how things go in Russia through a form of technology. Things that are said, things that are hacked into, are things that are directed without hacking. And then after that, it's India. And India would have the healthcare sector, which is guided by many hands, looking similar to like some of the goddesses they have. Like, I guess, I don't know if Shiva has a lot of hands, but I think Krishna has like a whole bunch of hands. And if not, then this LHC Collider, they have a whole bunch of hands on that the statue that's out front. So that correlates with India and the healthcare sector, the hands to, to help people out. And it's just about finding out what's the cold world about, because they have the hot world, the hot nation, but the rest of the world could be cold towards how it could be over there. Like a lot of people could just go over there and start building, but it don't really be happening like that. So they're missing the few things before them. So before India was Russia with that. So they're missing the technology to how to turn the water, the ice water from up there into a stream to flow downstream to their nation. And then they're missing the copper wire, which is the solid ground, because the soil and the sand is probably not, helping them ground or create pipes underneath the ground. And then before that, it would be hold up. What's the one before Mexico? South Africa. Yeah, so that's the copper on the problem with the utilities. So they had to probably get a lot of South Africans to go to India to help with the utilities and stuff like that. Just like in America, they have a lot of blacks that help with the utilities. And they're some of the highest paid people, like with civilian jobs and in the regular economy. And then before the South African government would correlate that, it'll be Hong Kong. So yeah, then Hong Kong could unionize it. And that's probably what BRICS is about. Brazil, Russia, China, because that China comes before Hong Kong. So then it'll be China next. And then India, which is one I was just talking about, and South Africa. So that's BRICS: Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa. So that's how they could establish their government to correlate with everybody's government, because it's a form of redevelopment just off the land, but not amongst nations. And then after India, it is Japan. And Japan is on the island, so it's an independent nation. separated from the land. So that's what makes it hard to orchestrate. But since Japan has the vehicle sector, everything's orchestrated through a body, and the body goes in the vehicle. So as long as there's nothing wrong with the vehicles, it shows that the body can still orchestrate amongst the beings. The beans. And then after that, the order of the fashion right here shows technology. And then it's, of course, I put it in a price order. So it shows by the value. Not to undervalue with any other, but just to say that the value of the price starts off with technology ones. It used to be health first, but then it changed a few years ago. And then, like I was saying, so the technology one will actually be with the Great British Pound, our Bitcoin right now. And then the healthcare one would be the Euro. The Swiss would have the vehicles. But then the Swiss comes back through time with the LAC Collider to get the Asians that could commit suicide in the kamikaze, as a kamikaze back in the day. But they come back to get them with a vehicle. So when the materials get heavy, the crude material comes as from a light material to a heavy material. It's like an atom bomb. That's why I was saying back in the other video, the atom bombs and stuff like that, they don't have no light in them. They just got a lot of crude in them. They got a lot of C-RU, C-R-U. And then it says C, that's the light. And then are you going to D? Are you going to run? Are you going to do whatever? But if you spell it out, the constant is to RU. And the D is to die you. So the die you becomes the dire need of the crude. But to see that it's rude, it is no longer a desire for the rudeness. It's only understood through the creed. So it's like saying, you look at the movie, they got a movie called Creed, or Crude. The thing is, they accrued a lot through the creed they have. They don't call it greed anymore. They call it creed. Because a person who can consume and sit back, like in America, they say we're number one consumers. That's not a creed. That's a greed. Because they say, oh, they could eat. They could sit back and eat all the time. But people in Africa starving. And people in Africa see that as rude. But they don't see it as we're taking food from them. Because they know that it's food all around us. Because God wouldn't put us nowhere we couldn't survive there. So it's a form of the land redevelopment. It's not about food development. Because when the land gets redeveloped, the food will grow and the people will be prosperous. But when the food is shown to make the people prosperous, it shows them that that food can just cause them to consume more than they would want to prosper against. So it's like saying, if somebody wants to prosper, but they have to eat to go do it, it shows that there's not enough motivation from the whole land mass, not just one, the whole body, that the body couldn't do it for itself, or the body couldn't do for itself. So basically, it's like saying, when you got to go to the next level of a consumer discretion, as what the third spot is I'm talking about, that's a vehicle. So when the chef or the Swiss would notice the Japanese yen, or the Switzerland, the Swiss would notice the Japanese. When they would notice them, they would say, dang, they gave risk their life inside that mechanical machine as an atom bomb. And then the Asians would notice that they could just drop an atom bomb and blow the whole place up. But they didn't. But the person that's going to war feels like they're going to blow up anyway, because they couldn't study the knowledge of the atom bomb. So the Asians' schooling is very important, because they're passed down the sea line, through the sea line itself, which is part of the life that's supposed to be everlasting after Abel passed. When Abel passed on, God created self as a sea line. And with that being said, if somebody's seeking knowledge to death, it's like saying they'll look for every speck until they kill themselves. Or they say they have high suicide rates because they're looking for it. Even if the light's bright, the flesh still covers the wound. So that's how come Asians' eyes probably have more flesh covering the whole cornea, because even the Bible, read in a book in the Bible, is talking about somebody had found somebody, and I think when they had took back something, they had scales in their eyes or something. But it's just showing that those scales are just the fat of what we consume that can blind us. But since we can't be blinded with knowledge, we can only be blinded with fat. The thing about it is we unbind ourselves with getting around the fat. So that's what vehicles are for. It gets us around the fat. So we won't have to worry about walking through the crowd, because the vehicle has orchestration to it. It has direction with pause, and, it has sleight with hand. So it has movements with it, which still dispatches and gets rid of the fat. So that's how that works. So the Asians use their eye, which is no longer recognized as fat, is looked at as knowledgeable. And Americans use their fat, which they no longer have to use their eyes to recognize that they could make vehicles like before. That's the Industrial Revolution, but become revolutionists for those who have already made the vehicles before. So it's like saying, what's a revolutionist? A revolutionist, to me, will be something that's not created as to be industrial, but it has enough in it to become an industry. So, how the Marines say, the few, the proud. It's not saying that there's not many that are proud, and it's not saying there should be few, but it's saying that however many there are is causing the revolution. So the revolution still maintains to be revolutionary, and it goes with the vehicle, which the daggone speedometer even had the word revolutions on it. So we know that the eye is not sore from being fat. It just has to realize that there's revelations in the Bible that complete everything towards the end. So it's not fear in the eye. That's what people have to avoid. They have to avoid fear in the eye, recognizing the body, but they can notice fear in the vehicle by not knowing how to use it. So the Asians are usually I don't like saying like this, but they usually get looked at sometimes and say, hey, they can't drive because they have to use the vehicle with their eyes. But then they say, oh, Americans can drive, like, Richard Petty and everybody else, they'll say, oh, he, can drive and do stuff or whatever because he's not using his eye. He's using the fat. So you see, the fat is the secure wall, like the wall. So it's regulated, but it's only determined that we won't have the same skill. So when he gets behind the wheel, he shows, hey, all these guys are professional and all these females are professional, So when they go there, they're not to be wasted as fat. They're not to be seen as, oh, let's see if they're going to crash and hurt themselves. They're looked at to be as professional as the way they got to the obstacle course to watch them as fans, as professional as how they would handle the vehicle for each individual person. So they became a revolutionist because they don't have to make Ford Model Ts for everybody. They have to show people that they have already been made, so we can only be, progress with them. So that's kind of how that works. So that's a long video. So then I go to industrials next. So the industrials is how to become industrialists through the Industrial Revolution. And that would be United States, because that's the fourth one. And then the consumer staples, will be after America, Canada. So that'd be the food, the light crude, which means we all share the light and what we see as rude. So we got to go ahead and share food. That's what consumer staples mean. And then the energy is how we get the food and the energy. That's how it's all priced in. It's like already there. That's exactly what happened in like order. So that's the energy. That's how people get around. And then the financials, oh yeah, the energy will be the Australian market. So they measure, that's the heavy measurement of the people, or the food, or the live cattle, because the consumer staples measures light cattle, and then not light cattle, light crude, and then the or you can say light cattle because it'll be the daggone milk, and then the energy measures the heavy crude, which is the blood, and then with the Asian society, I mean not Asian society, Australia society, they usually handle the blood of gold, or the diamonds. Those are the heavy land objects. So now that the African society has rights to the land, the Caucasian, not the Caucasians, well, it would be Caucasian because in the order of, if I had to say it like that, but it wouldn't actually have to be defined as, because in Australia, everybody could be anybody. It doesn't have to be a race, but they'll be pushing for the real estate market. So it's funny because this guy that I used to deal with, I still I guess could say I deal with him, but in Forex Factory, his name's Ars Lonko. And he, right before we stopped, he stopped trading on here really, he had said that he was going to go and get into real estate. And he was saying I'm one of the best traders that he's met and all this stuff. And it's not bad. I'm not saying it like it's a bad way. I'm saying he's just saying that. And I feel the same way about him. But I'm just saying, like, okay, for example, if I had to look and see where the threads start. Okay, here you go. So this is where most of the traders go to around the world to study Forex trading. And he stopped having trades posted really on there a long time ago. But he was at like 235,000 as far as with replies on his thread. But he was known as one of the best traders on the daggone whole blog. He influenced a lot of people to start blogs and trade and threads and stuff. And that was years ago. That was in 2009. And to this day, he's still in the top 3. So it's like a form of holding the bronze. So then, I ain't say the bonds, I said the bonds. He's holding the bonds because the bronze is similar to a form of copper. So let's see. So yeah, so then I go back to that and see how it went back to however it was on the website. So I'm gonna try to daggone refresh it so I can put it back in the order with the prices and stuff. And no, I ain't worried about people know what I be saying, because guess what? At the end of the day, sure, it's all the same thing. See these rappers out here talking about, man, somebody know how I said something nice like that, like I was flowing, everybody was listening, and blah, blah, blah. Don't be that serious. Anyway, after the daggone energy, it's shown how to move the heavy materials. That was a sign of Australia showing the Africans how to move the heavy. So when people go before the light in countries that benefit off of it, they're going to wonder how to move the heavy also, or the heaviness out of their way, or from the heaviness from their heart, because they're going to say, well, dang, all this stuff I did have, I don't have it now. But that's why the Bible said, don't worry about what's on the earth that rust and corrode away, because even if that was a form of measurement that came out the ground that somebody put in their body to make them look good, doesn't mean that's going to mean anything in the next round, because we all can see that and get it and move it around or whatever, but it could be a waste of energy. And then that's how the energy department can be measured. And then daggone the financials is dealing with New Zealand. You ever heard the saying, the early bird gets the worm? So that's like saying the money. New Zealand has a earlier time zone than Australia. And then that's how that works. So that's how the money is usually measured. But since there are rates overseeing things like, that, the after the real estate one, after the financials would be Brazil too. It'll be the same thing. So Brazil will be the financiers, but the Brazilians help the United States establish rates over top of New Zealand, because when most rates are raised is because somebody went to a lower region and came back with higher interest. So it's like saying, hey, I'm going to go to the South when it's warm and buy a whole bunch of long sleeve coats, and then come back to the North when it's cold and sell them jumps for cheap, because it should be cheaper down there because it's hotter. So of course that long sleeve stuff should be cheaper. That's a bad example because people in New York get clothes for cheap anyway. But I'm just trying to give you a understanding of what it means to go and get something lower that could be cheaper, and then really reuse it in a different environment. So anyway, after the Brazilian market helps increase the rates, because New Zealand used to have the highest rates, and now all of a sudden the United States does. So then the next one would be materials, and the materials would be the sector that's correlated with China. So, and it's the same order of like how I was doing it with that other chart that shows the gold and all the other currencies. So the material sector, of course, is correlated with China, and that'll be the materials that mainly handle the objects that are delivered to the people. And if you ask yourself, hey, what this say on the back of this box, or what I bought here and made, where it's made at? Guess what it's going to say? It's made in China, more than likely. It's materials. So then, by the time it goes to materials, it's in the Hong Kong market. So it's a unification. So that's what utilities does. Utilities shows unification, or to utilize one space. So if it's one space, it's a unification, because it's an identification of you being there with one space to utilize that there's light on the ground and above you. But it's more light above than there is on the ground, because ain't nobody going to look at the ground and say, oh, it's not. There's a whole bunch of light down here, unless you're looking at water that's reflecting light. And then that just reminds you that the water's right behind you, and so is the light. So then after that, the utilities is similar to water, same thing, I guess. And that was, like I said, the Hong Kong market. So that's the Hong Kong had, in China, they had the state grid. It's the wealthiest company on the whole planet, other than Walmart and Amazons and Apples and stuff like that. It's like those are the top four. But that's what the state grid does. So I could go to that right quick on here. Look, see. I could type it in, wealthiest company. I was typing companies, wealthy companies. Let's see. I wonder if it's on this one. See, yeah, there go right there. The state grid corporation of China. And then they got Walmart right there. But all right, so daggone. So that'll go with the utilities. And in return, since the energy grid couldn't literally be shut down, because the energy grid would come from Australia before it would come from China, or the sun would get to Australia before it get to China. Japanese companies are studying solar panels to stabilize the energy grid. Meanwhile, focusing on shutting down utilities to only rebuild utilities in the middle region. So they're putting stress on a lot of the job markets in the United States, which can be the problem with the government now with the wall, because they like, hey, if we put that pressure on that wall, we can get the pressure to bust the pipe through the wall. Then the money could come from them not using money on their pipes, but using money on their wall. So it's like saying the money getting used in the wall is being used as an energy source to regulate off the grid. So people put money on the wall and put wall on the mark, then Walmart can go to the southern regions, and Apple in America, and Apple and daggone Amazon could daggone try to take over the energy grid and the utilities grid for the United States. So the utilities would be the Amazonians, because they would be the beings to utilize a region. And then daggone Apple, which could be the apple in the Bible, they say that's in the Bible. I don't think there even says apple in the Bible, but if it does say apple, I'm not saying it's the business, but daggone the apple would basically be like the other way of it, saying like, hey, it's like the energy sector. So the apple will be used through the Australians, who are the energy trappers, are to put harnesses on energy to daggone say, hey, it's a harness on the person, or something like that. But a veil is to hide from the harness. So apparently the Australian region has the energy harness in the face and the body, but they use their eyes to harness the energy back. So basically, the person will look in the eyes and get pulled, but never get harnessed. They'll get pulled, like captivated. So then it's like saying, after that, the energy sector goes back to the utility sector and says, hey, I've captivated something. Where is it utilizing itself? Where is it relieving itself of its excrement of its body? And then the Bible talks about the queen is even at the bowels of the bowels of the earth. So if an excrement is being released to the bowels, that's to the lowest part, and then the energy will be released to the highest part. So if you think about it, E come before U, so energy would be high, and then utilities would be low. So the bowels would be excremented from the queen to be defined by her blood, which is above her excrement. And then for a man, the semen will be above his excrement, but he was semen below in excrement. And that's how men handle energy through time. So then, after the real estate, after utilities, it goes to real estate, and through time is the form of measuring real estate. So the wire is measured from point A to B. It's a straight line. Wire isn't usually bent unless it's coiling to create energy. It's straight if it has utilities. When you see a wire that bend with poop in it and pee in it and excrement and blood and water in it to daggone coil down, it doesn't coil down because it'll get clogged. So the straight line is the way, like the Bible is straight and narrow, but the wide and deep are the wide and crooked would be the utilities. So basically, somebody bathed in water from a wide and crooked stream, then they probably have bad utilities in their blood. But if they got straight and narrow, like a Gibraltar Strait, it creates a sea. It goes straight through there, and it filters out all that from the Atlantic Ocean, and it creates a sea with no coil in it. It's only a straight copper wire. So if people wanted to go and create underground Atlantean tunnels, they would have to start at the Gibraltar Sea, and they would have to manufacture the copper wire from the Mediterranean, buying it from the Africans in the southern region, so they can put the metal above their head and take the metal off the woman's neck, so she wouldn't look like she's enslaved by what she can't say of how the old ancients used to do it. She can only vibrate in her mind because they took her vibrations from between her legs. So that's how that worked. And then after the real estate, it's the communication. And that's why I was saying that's the vibrations coming from her vocals, because she can only speak so loud, because we see her as the bowels, to the bowels of the earth, as the queen, her excrement. And then they see the energy as an excellence. But the excellence comes from excrement. I mean, the excrement comes from excellence anyway. So that's like saying, we all get things, but we should never look at them as waste. We look at them as excrements, our accessories, our extra things. And then the waste becomes the past. So the past can never be wasted. So that's why it's like, even if we said things in the past or do things in the past, the communication can't be thrown away. It's usually recorded. Like in the Bible, it says we have recorders. The angels in heaven have recorders because they know it's extra. That meant more. And, we'd never been wasted. We just went away to the wayside. As the Bible would probably mention of a wayside. So that's the communications. So then after that, go to the next page. And that's just all the sites is in news. And then all the currency. Remember I said all that stuff add up. So, I forgot to say. Daggone utility sector was Hong Kong. Real estate was South Africa. And the communications was Mexico. And then to go back, Russia being the technology sector. Daggone India being the health sector, and Japan consumer discretionary. That's the vehicles. That's why I said they both got the vehicles. Like Switzerland, they had the LAC Collider, and Japan has the vehicles on the ground. But now Japan's about to get into the LAC Collider and use the solar power, and then the Switzerland nation doesn't have to worry about getting money because they just rely off the wind. So basically, as soon as they sell them rights to the Asian community, they don't even have to get into banking, because they're going to win anyway, because they daggone got all the knowledge going into the ground, and the ground is getting electric, powering the whole continent of Europe all the way to Asia, while America has to rely on the electrical power that we have. But if there's not power in North and South America, then the Chinese government can cut off the United States grid and then force us to buy solar power from daggone the Asian nation if they go into solar power that heavy. But if we can conduct with copper wire, we can put a wire directly to the nation through the Gibraltar Strait, and daggone harness the power from the LAC Collider directly, like a plug in a socket. So it's like saying, they try to put the energy underneath the ground, then we could just go through the tunnel of the ground. But they had to start with the East Coast to get that wire to extend that far. So if somebody pull that plug, some get ungrounded, then it's going to unplug the whole jump. And then if somebody can't get the wire fixed or get that deep to find it, then it's not going to work. So it's going to have to be more like either a flat. Well, it couldn't really be that much flat, because check this out. In Japan, they're studying the form of creating solar panels on the shore. I can type that in right quick. Watch. See, look. They got these things right here, these solar panels that float on the daggone water. And they could power a whole city. So if we don't develop those in the East Coast, and we can't tap into the United States, we can't tap into the LAC Collider's power structure, then what could happen is, if they ever had a power strike or short, then daggone, or if the UK government went through an energy crisis and they couldn't afford to do anything but keep the lights on, they wouldn't create funding to us. They would only fund research to create solar panels. See what I'm saying? So if I scroll down on that, it's like, that's all the data right here. And then as you see, they got one in India too. They probably got them all over there. But in America, it ain't really rolling like that. It's probably knowledgeable, but it's not like, as far as like what's the main thing going on right now. So anyway, I get off of that. So that's the base of the yen. That's the base communication, the base panel. You know, a panel, people sit before panels and they go to boards. So the thing is that board is a motherboard coming from a solar panel. But the board is before the sun because we all see the sun. So we're the boards. But we're not panels. We can only become Borgs, like the Star Trek stuff. We go to war, come back, and we get, body parts and things that can alter the body. That's a form of Borging the body, or it's a form of boring the body. So what happens is that part of the body that was bored, it goes, like the Bible says, if it's a foul part of the body, it's better to get rid of it so it can be cast into hell instead of to let the whole body go to hell. That's basically what bored is. So when people talk about return of the Borgs, basically, I think that's because if energy is harnessed from the sun and the sun is harnessing the universe partially in certain regions, not even probably partially, but if there's multiple suns, then it's replica of Borgs out there because the Borg pushes the waste to the sun. And then the sun pushes what it wastes to the earth. And then the earth wastes because they can't spore back the sun to cool it off. So they be like, man, it's hot. I'm sweating. You know what I'm saying? Or it's cold. I'm going to eat a whole lot and hibernate and then poop up in the house like a bear. So basically, that's how come the Borgs could come, because they don't get attracted to the waste of the poop, of the cold. That's how come the earth's getting hot. They get daggone attracted to the daggone spore. So basically, a spore would look like what comes from a fungal substance. So if a fungus grows at night, which they say it do, because the moonlight creates the fungal, the spore comes in the day, which people see it. When they trip, they say they see a lot of colors. Well, if it's dark outside, nobody will see colors in the moon. So apparently the moon spores itself, just like the sun spores. But the sun spores for green, the moon spores for gray. So basically, daggone, the grays are Borgs from the moon. So when they left the moon, they was looking for green. But they couldn't find green because daggone, it was spoiling on the earth. So what happened was when they came back to the moon, they was like, dang, it ain't no green out there. But they weren't looking at the earth. They kept looking at the earth like the moon, and the moon, like people, we look on the earth right now to the moon. We look at the moon like it's the moon, but it's probably the earth sporing. It's like a fungal trip. It's like saying, daggone, the earth left so much fungus, the cow said, moo. You know what I'm saying? And we say moon. And then we say move through the spore as a spore, but the cow don't move up with a spore. It excretes waste like the sun, like I said, with the light in on the panel. So the cow is already bored. It's the waste that came from the body that went to hell, so the whole body wouldn't go to hell. Remember, daggone Moses with the daggone 10 Commandments came to daggone from Mount Sinai, and to see them with the cow or the calf, and the calf had to get thrown into hell so the body wouldn't. Because when the earth opened up, it swallowed it. So basically, the cow, daggone, got excrements coming from the body, which came from hell, which are the foul of the air. It's the foul smell. So the birds become attracted to the smell, so they fly like Borgs to where the flock is, or to where the herd is. So they don't hear, they only can smell. They have a sense of smell. So if they hear, it's only what the vibrations are, the waves are, or the wind. So the Borgs probably don't hear. So when people sending signals out of space, they don't hear. They probably use Morse code, like light or something, because light will be faster than hearing, as far as I know. I mean, or hearing probably, no, I probably wouldn't say that. That's probably wrong, because since the word is first, that'll still be fast, but the light will still be faster than the word. So it's like, that's something I can define. But I'll say this much. Basically, the solar panels pull light in. So when the light gets pulled, daggone, it's a Borg behind it, or a being behind it, pushing the light. You know what I'm saying? For every action, there's a reaction. So apparently, The Borg is daggone in front of the sun, probably going forward, thinking it's an illusion, yo. The Borg is illusion. I mean, in an illusion, thinking it's going forward, but all it's doing is blowing sunlight or blowing gas back. And then people on the Earth in illusion, thinking they going forward, but all they doing is pulling the moon back. But if people push the moon forward, the Borg will come back. So it's like saying, we think about Neil Armstrong and the other great Americans and other people all around the world, from Russia to China, Africa, everybody has had the opportunity to travel out of space. You know what I'm saying? Basically, if they were able to push towards the moon, the daggone Borg would come back. So when they were to go to the moon, they still would come back. But when they come back, they would have spores of the bug on them. I mean, spores of the Borg on them. The Borg spore is no the Borg's waste is the moon as a spore. Man's waste is the sun as a spore. So what happens is the sun spores and we eat. The moon spores and the Borgs eat. So basically, the moon is probably a base for Borgs because we're humans. We have animals. They're Borgs. They have humans. But the Borg and the animal have a father. Is AB as the father. But the father becomes an illusion. Remember, the devil is a shapeshifter. So then the devil is delusionizing the daggone humans, and then God is showing the illusion to the Borgs, so the Borgs can recognize the face of the Lord without perishing, but seeking everlasting life. And us as humans won't perish, but we'll realize that we have everlasting life, but we just don't have the Borg to give it to us. We don't have the right to take our limbs for no reason and then just waste them, because they'll go directly to the Borgs. So then the Borgs will come back with mechanical body parts. But the human is defined as the being. So the Borg is defined as the bore, or the gawing, or the boring, like the injury that happened to Lazarus. It left a bore, but since Jesus even knew how to heal bores, he became a Borg. So the more we look at, the main and those who can't do things, they have Jesus with us. You know what I'm saying? But it's like the Borg is with them, but Jesus operates through the Borg. So even every little machine we could use, Jesus operates through that. So it don't even matter. But that was a form of returning the metal to the sword that cut the ear off. You know what I'm saying? So the hearing could come back, but the Borg couldn't, meaning somebody couldn't just go up to somebody and just say, I'm going to do this to him. And just do it. And it became amended. That's how it mended back to his ear, because it was heard that of amendment, something great would come. So it was amended through a few. You know what I'm saying? To the fifth, when nobody hand ain't say nothing, it just raised and say, how can we follow the Lord? And that's like going to school. So people go to school after 5, following the body. And then the people that lead the body in school go to church. And then they get led by the Spirit to get out of church because they want to go home and do something. So then they go home and see the carpentry and pray for all the carpenters, and pray for all the plumbers in South Africa, and for all the people in India and China and Kazakhstan and Russia with the cold pipes but the hot mufflers. Pray for our people with the Harley Davidsons that help keep the brotherhood strong and separate division from themselves, because their eyes get sad and blue. But the king don't eat Butterfinger BBs. He just play with Lucille, but not Lucille's balls, because it's respect for Mr. Perez, Arnaz, or however you want to say anybody's name, because they all go back to the same thing. Daggone. Anyway, what I supposed to say now? What happened? I supposed to listen to myself talk. I keep on saying stuff over again. It's so whack. And that's the funny part about YouTube. People be talking, and they be just talking to the computer like they know people gonna listen. Like, oh yeah, people gonna listen to me. And I just talk like I'm just talking because every time I say so, I know it's gonna be heard somewhere. And if it don't get nowhere, there ain't no reason to keep on saying nothing. But the thing about it is, after all that, guess what happened next? I go right back to what I'm gonna say again. So it's back to the charts on the screen. If y'all are looking at the screen, if y'all ain't looking at the screen, that's on y'all. But as we see, I ain't even noticed. I just looked at it. Ford Motor Company. It's right here. They down 6.22%. So basically, the industrialists are down, but the knowledge is up. So it means that the knowledge of the paneling is increasing, while the board's panel of industrialists are reducing. But due to economic conditions and the sun always having light, but the car can usually get cold through these winter months until the winter's up, the automotive sector is probably going to do bad, especially with insurance claims, raining, all that stuff. So basically, these are the times when people invest in the solar region or the yen market. That's how come economies usually can collapse during the holiday seasons, the whole winter months, because the yen gets the sun or the heat, and then the western region gets the cold. So of course, whatever code they use through industrial revolutionizing or having revelations of the mind is not in correlation with the mind. The correlation is the solar panels could heat up the ground so hot that the closer somebody lives to the ocean front, the less snow they would see, because the snow is a flaking of, I'll put it this way, the snow is like grass to the moon. It's like saying it leaves, and then it falls. It leaves the moon, then it falls to Earth. But not saying that's how snow is from the moon. It's not. I'm not saying it's coming from the moon. But if the moon moves the tides move the life that's in the water. So with snow doesn't move the life that's in the grass. It eliminates it. So basically, what I was saying is that snow getting on the ground, it causes whatever's on the ground moving with a form of energy to be eliminated. It's like a way of slowing everything down. So even the minds of the Western civilization would have to be faster, and by natural cause, because they aren't slowed down by the wind. But in Russia, they have a lot of snow, which shows that the mind can never slow down because we all can learn the same. But the actions of the mind are slow because of the natural conditions. So by the time all that knowledge come from the east, and get to the west, it's only slowed down by a period of time. But since we all see things the same, we all are here to prosper and help people live, then that knowledge is looked at as just. And that's how come the justice system accepts all knowledge of man as an equal amended right. But since we're separated by nations and barriers, it slows down that process. But it's not saying that process in time wouldn't be something to look forward to. Because even Martin Luther King's dream showed that his dream had a time to play itself into what wasn't already. It was just a part of what was. Because he is a part of that moment. And so is everybody else that was there with him. From all the races. You know what I mean? It's not to say that anything stopped. It's just saying it was slowed because our eyes were quickened by the Asian society. So now we see fast and the Asians eat slow, which is true. You ever go to an Asian restaurant and they eat with chopsticks? That's eating slow. We got to eat with spoons because we daggone have to keep ourselves energized to do the physical work, and the Asians meditate without physical work. So physical work and meditation, that's like saying M and P. So the meditators are in the East, the physicals are in the West. So by the time you think about the west, way in the West, if you would say, man, who in the West right now, one of the most physical people on the planet? Oh, LeBron James playing basketball. He played for the Lakers, man. He in the West Coast. So he got to be physical. All right, now who in the East Coast that's quick with meditating mind? Buddha. Leave it just like that. Because at any point in time, that man's life and his family's lineage, all that stuff, with the woman, the kids, all that stuff is the same. Buddha is Buddha. Then it goes before Buddha, and that's Adonai. And then from there, that's the beginning. That's Lord, that's God. That's one of God's true names. If it's not his first name. So if he would say, well, how does it go to the next? Well, A to Y, what's all the vowels? A, E, I, O, U. Sometimes Y. You know why Y will be sometimes? Because Yahweh is all the time. So with that being said, I don't know what I say, man. I'm about to go do something else with myself. Okay, bye.